Oh, you guys are singling me out now. Well, whatever. They want to act like that. All right. So, welcome into the Casual Sports
I'm
Report.
here. He's trying to mute
Matt's
my
here. Matt, you're not muted. I just heard you. All right. Now they're both gone. All right. So, welcome in, guys. I'll start talking because I don't think they want to join today.
Matt doesn't know how to keep his, fat mouth
Matt
shut
ruined it.
and see if you can do it. He starts talking in the middle of you finally doing the intro.
Matt ruined it. He
Sorry.
can't help himself, Alex. Don't you know that?
Give me a
No.
break.
No, I don't want to.
All right.
Yeah. So, we got to, Matt, we got actually, it wouldn't work because Alex can control it too, but we got to single him out too.
What do you mean? I bring in the show every day.
Pretty much.
No, I mean, like, just throw you a curveball where you're expecting all three of us to come in and just you.
I mean, you guys could technically both exit out of the stream.
Yeah, but then we got to re-enter.
Yeah, I can see everybody doing it, so.
Yeah.
It's too much work.
Yeah, we know, Matt. Everything's too much work for you. It's just ripping in on Matt. I missed yesterday's show, and I just, I had a whole day's worth of comments to throw at him, so I had to just get it in here early.
Well, we were throwing comments at you when you weren't here, so.
Well, you always do.
We all do to each other, man.
I know.
Well, was it about my thoughts on the Rangers sweeping the Pittsburgh's Penguins, and it's not going to happen?
Maybe.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, that
yes,
figure's going to turn around. We'll talk about that a little bit later into the show. Got a lot to go through. Obviously, playoffs in full spins on both sides of the indoor sports. Major League Baseball getting past our first month here. And obviously, Horizon League Baseball coming down. About 7-8 games left for some teams here in the rest of the season. Mainly Youngstown State University. They look pretty far out of it, but a big weekend here to finish things out. Could propel them into at least a decent spot here to finish out the season. With 7 games left in the schedule, they have 5 games against UIC and 2 games against Northern Kentucky, and that's going to be a hard ask to do. They can probably take both games against Northern Kentucky, but the 5 set against UIC is going to be very difficult, especially after this weekend. UIC now 12-7. And they look to be in good control of where they sit right now in the Horizon League play. Oakland had maybe the best weekend out of any team in the Horizon League. They went 3-1, taking down Wright State in 2 games in the process of doing that. So, to me, they probably had the most impressive weekend. They have the best overall record right now in the conference, but the best conference win percentage still belongs to Wright State, commanding 16-6 conference record right now. And it looks like they're going to be in a good spot to finish out that way. I mean, look at the rest of their season in conference play. 2 games against Purdue Fort Wayne. Well, yes, they are looking like they were going to make a run up. They're still 10-14 and 13-31 overall. So not exactly a storybook ending for that group. And the other games is 5 of them, against Milwaukee to finish out the year for Wright State. So unless the worst team in the conference can make a massive upset 5 times, it looks like Wright State probably is going to come away with the regular season Horizon League championship after this last weekend.
Yeah, but I think regardless, it's still a fun race. I mean, you ran through it all. I mean, win percentage-wise, Oakland hasn't beat, but coming down to the Horizon League scene, it's going to be fun with UIC thrown in there too. You can't ignore them. So
UIC is definitely kind of slowly sticking around, right? I mean, their overall record is 20-20, and they've been sitting about 500 as their overall pretty much the last 2-3 weeks here. And in conference play, 12-7, they've definitely done a good job, and they've done just enough to kind of just keep their head in the window there and just say, "Hey, I'm here."
And it's certainly top heavy too. I mean, I know we're talking about this race here, but it goes those 3 teams. There's a big drop off after that with the last 4, with Purdue and Fort Wayne, Northern Kentucky, us, and then Milwaukee. So it's pretty top heavy, but it's still a fun race regardless.
Yeah, definitely.
It's always a fun race.
Yeah,
I mean, we have multiple teams involved that have shots.
6 of our teams are going to make it. So right now, the cutoff does sit at Youngstown State, I believe. Yeah. 6 of the 7 teams make it.
Yeah, see that?
They're in. That's all they got to do. But, I mean, then they'll start off against Wright State, which will definitely be a big ask.
That's tough. I mean, I mean, they're standard right now. Not conference wise, record wise, but overall, that's standard.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of has been that way, but I think maybe at this point in the season, it's a big disappointment, I think, of what the season could have been, especially after what they did last year. I mean, they finished third place, 20 plus wins in conference play. Obviously, a lot of teams didn't get in anywhere near as many games this season with a lot of cancelizations going on. But I still think, you look at what's been accomplished this year, and it doesn't live up to what they did last year. I mean, 32 and 24 overall, 24 and 16 as a crew in conference play. I mean, Wright State's going back to back here at the top. UIC was second place last year. But the rest of these standings, they really did a huge flip. I mean, Youngstown State was the third team last year. Milwaukee was fourth. Northern Kentucky, pretty much in the same spot at the fifth spot. Oakland was sixth, and Purdue Fort Wayne was seventh last year. And I think a lot of people kind of, including us here on the show, expected the conference to kind of flow out the same this year. And look, Oakland's made a big jump from last year. Purdue, Fort Wayne, I mean, despite the fact they played less games by a decent margin, they've really done a fantastic job. I mean, they're at 10 and 14, so they have more wins in less games than last year. It's a big step up for that program, and a couple big jump down for Youngstown State and Milwaukee here this season.
Yeah, I think it's overall it's because of that slide watch you just had last week. We were talking about it too.
Yeah.
They plummeted.
They were heating up, and then they just took. I think twice this season they've taken long 2-3 stands where they've just lost every game, and that's what's really hurt them overall.
Yeah. And obviously, I think some of these other teams near the bottom, like Milwaukee, I haven't looked at their schedule recently, but going off their record, I'm sure they've had stretches like that where they've had a hard time. And like I just said, it's top heavy in this conference with the 3 teams at the top, and all the 4 teams at the bottom, none of them are above 500. So that's a little bit of a drop off, but it's still, like I said, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, it should be Horizon League tournament starts on the 25th, goes through the 27th. So, we're coming down to it. 15 days left in the season. Most teams have about 7 days left to get things in order, but that'll do it here for Horizon League play. YSN put out their power rankings here for high school ball. Came out about 20 minutes ago for boys baseball and girls softball. Got put out about 2 hours ago. We're actually going to go into that tomorrow here on the podcast. Let's start it off with some Major League Baseball. They felt a little cold left out in the rain when I've been on the show, so I'm going to put them up here at the front, guys. A lot of things going on. I mean, some big days yesterday, and Matt, I'm guessing you're woohooing because the Guardians, last night made an awesome comeback in the 5th inning to tie it up, and then the walk-off in the 11th was epic.
It was amazing. Did you say what inning did you say?
What?
Did you say 9th inning, right?
9th inning, they tied it at 5, and then won it in the 11th.
Naylor, they were down 8-2, and then they score. That's unbelievable what they did. I mean, 6 unanswered runs, capping off with the grand slam by Josh Naylor was unbelievable. Yeah. I just got home. I'm like, oh, it's still on, so I put it on, and I just cut the whole end of it. Yeah, it was awesome.
On my side, I mean, I was a little taken aback because I think it was I had turned on my radio in my car driving back from Bob Scene last night, and I think their 8th inning score was 4-1. So I turned, I got back to my apartment, didn't even think of turning it on. I'm like, well, that's going to be a, terrible 9th inning. I don't want to watch that. And then they come out and put up 6 runs in the 9th. I mean, to tie that thing up, that's impeccable, man.
That's not Cleveland. Cleveland doesn't score runs late. They don't do that.
But we were a team that did that last year, Matt. The Guardians last year when they were the Indians, we didn't get any runs until the 6th, 7th, and 8th innings.
You know what? That is right. But
we were that
before that
second right there at the 7th inning stretch is where our team got hot.
That is true. I do remember that. But I mean, we haven't. Besides that one year, like we're not a hitting team. We don't hit grand slams. When was the last grand slam we hit? I think it was.
Probably Jose Ramirez. Probably.
I remember the Travis Hafner one.
Dude, they've had more since then.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. They might even have had one this year. I mean, they had to if all these runs have been scored. And they poured it on last night and they had that grand slam. And I like I said, I saw the score last night, 8-2. And I woke up this morning and they won. I was like, what the heck happened?
Oh, it looks like Cesar Hernandez had it. last
Okay.
year.
Yeah, I was going to say no.
And then
Travis Hafner. That was forever ago.
I think Edwin Encarnacion hit one. And then, of course, Lindor.
Yeah.
All right. But still, we really need to win that one last night. I mean, it's Chicago. I mean, we're in second now. That was big. And, Alex, so far you're right. By the end of this month, Cleveland, looks like they could take over Minnesota for first. They could.
Yeah. And,
they keep playing that way they do. I mean, they're 8-2 in their last 10. So,
well, I guess the only thing when you look at Cleveland and you go, oh, well, they can take over for Minnesota. This is the team that should already be in first place, and they should have been holding on to it for the last, I don't know, probably month and a half, but they took that terrible slide, killed all of their momentum because they went up against some pretty difficult teams over 500. And, I told you this month they had a lighter schedule, and I liked what was coming ahead of it, and they seem to be getting back on track. But big things come down to the pitching has to step up. Pitching has to get back to where it was when we started off this season. And we looked at this bullpen and went, man, this is top 5 right now in Major League Baseball with what they're doing. We haven't seen that in a while, and they need to get back to what got them to that early start of the season. And it's always going to be the bullpen. I mean, you look at where they are now. The Cleveland Guardians rank 24th in Major League Baseball in earned run average up there on the mound. They're allowing about 4.03 per game at this point, which is among the worst in baseball. I mean, the Pirates are down there at 468, Nationals 492. Then the Cincy Reds have been awful at 651. So this team needs to get back to pitching the baseball well, and they have to find ways to limit hits because you can't win allowing 212 hits. It works for some teams, but we're outside the top 10 in that at that place, so we're 11th there. They need to find a way to get those down, and strikeouts, they have to be a big part of what this bullpen does, because strikeouts on the season, they're sitting about middle of the pack, 239. League leaders is Milwaukee Brewers. They're over 300 already at this point, so there's a lot of room to build on. And they really need to get back to, as I said, what got them off to that hot start, hitting the baseball well, which they've constantly done, and getting that pitching back in order. Because in the last 7 days alone, the Cleveland Guardians are having an ERA of 4.5. And, we won in those games, 5-2 in those last 7 days. But at the same time, you look at that and go, we got lucky. That's not going to hold up throughout the rest of the season if they continue to allow a lot of runs. As you mentioned here, Cleveland has never been a big hitting team. What's going to change in the later half of this season? The bullpen has to take this time right now as the bats are working to start limiting that ERA. Bring those numbers down, get some more strikeouts in there, and just learn how to take control. There's a lot of young guys up there, and they need to figure things out.
I definitely agree. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, other big news in baseball last night, Mike Trout has reached yet another milestone. He set the record for most career home runs at Angel Stadium. He hit his 161st blast to surpass Tim Salmon's previous record. That was obviously 160, put it down the line as they eventually went on to win 11-3. But I thought at least should be mentioning
Angels,
that
man,
for the Trout.
It's just like the movie. There's angels in the outfield making them better.
Yeah, I guess so.
Mike Trout,
well, if they go like guaranteed, if they go like make a pennant or something or go to the playoffs, the whole crowd's got to start doing that thing. I mean, they have
that. I don't know how many members of the crowd still even know that movie, dude.
Oh, they should.
They should, but like, that's from the that was 1994 is when that came
everybody
out.
remembers, every Cleveland fan remembers Major League because, I mean, in that movie we win while the Angels
because that was
like
the only thing we won in 50 years.
Yeah.
It was a fake championship.
Right. We had it was what? The last
Wait, what?
Browns championship, I think, was the last title won in Cleveland. Right? No, I think the
Indians 1948.
Yeah, 1948. I think Browns
Yeah.
had an NFL championship right before it came the Super Bowl. That was
Yeah.
the last title in Cleveland before LeBron and the Cavs won it.
No, that was 64.
Yeah,
The
that's
last
what I
Browns
meant.
one.
Yeah, I said the Browns won it. And that was the last title we had won.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I got it wrong. Okay.
But hey, I mean, I'd remember that movie. It's the Angels' major league to us. I mean, pretty much.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a lot of warm weather fans for the Angels that aren't going to even know anything about the Angels at this point. So,
All right.
especially if they make it to a chance for a pennant, they're going to have a lot of bandwagoners. They're an LA
Dude, that's
team now.
everywhere.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm especially
Except if you're not the
LA team.
Dodgers, Yankees, that's everywhere.
Right.
Or Red Sox, because those places sell out. Because those are like bucket list stadiums where everybody's going to be there. Like teams like the Angels, where you're getting outdrawn by the Dodgers every night. So yeah, there's going to be a bunch of people that switch over for sure.
I mean, but how awesome would it be? I think, I know a lot of people don't like New York and LA, but I mean, how sweet would it be, though, to really see just, the LA Angels taking on the, LA Dodgers in the championship, or the Mets versus the Yankees? I mean, you talk about the ultimate, storyline, wipe out everything that's ever happened in baseball. You wouldn't have a 7-game series, I think, as intense as that we've ever seen before. Especially Yankees Mets. You go Yankees Mets in a World Series at this point.
It's happened before.
Has it? I don't remember.
The Earthquake series.
That's right.
The Bay series. It was the San Francisco
A's
Giants
and
and the Oakland A's. Yeah. I think that was the last time.
Then speaking of the Angels, they had the Angels play the Giants like 0-2 when the Angels won. That's a close distance.
But I mean, you talk same city.
Same city, yeah, but
down the street from each other. I mean, I think especially Yankees and Mets. That's a series I think everybody would love to see.
They had that in what, Matt? 2000?
2002. 2002.
No, the Angels 2002.
Oh, who are you talking about then?
Mets and Yankees. I think it was 2000.
It might have been, yeah.
I think, yeah, because Yankees beat them like five games or something.
Yeah, it was 2000.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you look at the rosters that both these teams have, if they can take that in here, that would be epic, man. You talk about some, guaranteed Hall of Famers playing in that game.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
how about this?
This might be the year. I told Matt, there's still always a thing in your head. I said this yesterday, but this might be the year the Mets don't fall apart.
It might be.
And there it goes. They're losing every game for the next month.
I'm just saying. I think it could be different, but I'm not putting it out of my head that they could collapse. But
Mike is putting the
Mike
jinx
Trout
out
wasn't
there.
the only one to reach a milestone last night.
Go for it.
Well, it says according to ESPN stats, Josh Naylor actually became the first player since the stat became official in 1920 to have 8 RBIs from the nth inning on in a game.
Yeah, I think you sent that.
What?
I think you sent that in the chat because that looks
Yeah,
familiar.
he also became the first player in Major League history with multiple 3-run home runs or a grand slam from the 9th inning on in a game. Wow.
Yeah,
I mean that's also unlikely, like scenarios too. At those points in the game, 9th inning or later.
Could you imagine being a bettor in that game last night and it went? You're in, you were betting on Chicago and you're like holding a nice 4-1 lead going to the final inning. You're like, I feel good. No, and then everything spirals. I mean,
especially do it against Liam Hendricks. I mean, the guy was an all-star.
Guy's one of the best closers in the league.
Save since April 8th.
Yeah, and he hasn't been this year. Last year he was sick. He was probably the best closer in the league last year.
Probably.
Well, Shohei Ohtani also had his first grand slam last night as a professional in the majors. How about that? I mean, you were talking about that Angels squad. They certainly have a lineup this season that can make some noise if they continue going this way.
I think too, if they continue to get pitching the way that they have been, because we know the last couple of years they've had great lineups, but that's been the reason why they haven't been playoff teams, because they had no pitching. So if they can keep it where they're at now and maybe pick up another arm at the deadline or maybe arm or two at that point. I like the Angels. I was just saying about the Mets. I think it could be potentially different for them this year because, I mean, other than Houston, I mean, Seattle's hovering around 500, so they're not a huge threat. I mean, they could be a threat for a wild card, but like, there's really not a huge threat in this division.
No.
No, and I mean, especially with the emergence of Taylor Ward in the outfield, I mean, you
Yep.
already look at all the stars they have playing out there, and now the young gun is, coming in there. He's getting good time. And, batting 364, getting 6 home runs, 4 doubles. He's drawn 19 walks and 15 RBIs in just 22 games, And at the moment, he's up there at the top of Major League Baseball in batting percentage, just behind Manny Machado for the Padres with 364. His on-base percentage is at 490, which leads the majors. And he also leads the majors with 675 in a slugging percentage. So, as much as we talk about Trout in this lineup, Justin Upton, even Brandon Marsh and Joe Adell. Gotta remember Taylor Ward right now is a big piece of why this team is where they are.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting young guys that are stepping up. And I know last year they had Jared Walsh. He replaced Albert Pujols when he got cut. So they got young guys to step up, too. And they also, they went out and spent money on their lineup the last few years. Getting Anthony Rendon, I know he had a bad year. But, Matt, that year he was with the Nationals winning the World Series. He's one of the better third basemen, period, in the league. But at that point, he was, in the conversation. So that was big for them. And their guys are starting to play better. I think that's the big thing, obviously. And it shows up in their record.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, other games going on today, Tigers and Athletics, top of the 5th inning. They're still knotted up at 0, but Tigers got 2 guys on, it looks like, with no outs on first and second. First of a doubleheader for the series today. Both those teams, I think, in some desperate needs for a win at this point. I mean, talk about just falling down. I mean, Oakland kind of looked like they were off to a little bit of a promising start, but I mean, I think with the lack of attendance right now, I think it's starting to get into some of the mindsets of these players. They're getting into some more and more of these home games. I think not having anybody there is really eating into the psyche of this team because something good happens and no one's there to cheer for it. I think it's disheartening for this franchise. And for the sake of baseball and the sake of those players' careers, I hope the Athletics leave Oakland here after the season.
Maybe that's what they were doing. I mean, maybe that's what they were setting up for. I mean, you trade all your players away, and
yeah,
I mean, might as well tank and then move.
Well,
I don't
tough.
know.
It's tough because this is baseball's problem. We just saw this with the lockout, and they did absolutely nothing to fix it. Where you could have saved teams like Oakland or teams like the Marlins or Diamondbacks, and I'll throw Pittsburgh in there because they're another team that doesn't spend money. So they could have fixed this and thrown a salary cap in, but a bunch of owners voted not to do it. And until it happens, you're going to have small market teams like this that only have a couple thousand people at their games. That's baseball's problem to fix it, and they didn't do it. So.
Yeah, and it's going to cost them a team in Oakland, and I mean, California has enough teams, so I think it might be more interesting next season. I mean, it feels like it's been a while since baseball's had a new team introduced, so I think the move here would be good for the league. I mean, you've seen rebrandings of teams such as Cleveland or, just new logos here and there. But, I mean, I'm sure you guys would know this better than I. When's the last time they changed a team?
Moved?
Last time they moved a team?
Yeah, last team that moved.
I think it's been a while, probably, Matt. You could probably say Dodgers 50 years ago. Or how long they've been in Los Angeles. They used to be in Brooklyn.
No.
Maybe
Montreal Expos, 2000.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The Washington Nationals.
Yep.
So I mean, it's been 17 years. We went a huge gap because as you're talking about those moves in the 50s and the 60s, nothing was done for the next 40 years until the Montreal Expos moved.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't happen too often.
It doesn't happen in many sports too often. I mean, I know it's happened sometimes. There's been a few teams changed in hockey, hasn't there been recently? Unless I'm wrong. But I know in basketball you've had teams recently like the Grizzlies, but even them, they haven't had one in a long time. That was 20 years ago.
Oklahoma City.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Sonics. See, there's some I forget about.
Yeah, that's right.
Charlotte had the rebranding. New Orleans had a rebranding.
Yeah, it used to be the Charlotte
Bobcats.
Yeah, Charlotte Bobcats.
It was the New Orleans Hornets, I believe.
Yeah, it was the New Orleans Hornets. That's who Chris Paul played for, the New Orleans Hornets.
Definitely looks weird. And the last time there was
an
expansion in Major League Baseball were the Arizona Diamondbacks and Tampa Bay Devil Rays back in 1998.
Yep.
Before that, it was the Colorado Rockies and the Florida Marlins in 93. So, I mean, the league right now, they're due. They're due for an expansion or a move. It's been a while, and, especially when I think we have a few good cases for it, especially right now with Oakland. I mean, they haven't done anything really of mega mention that can really even warrant them to stay. The crowd's not there. They don't have a roster that's really like, oh, everybody has to go see it. Now's the perfect time for a move for Oakland. And, a lot of rumors are Las Vegas. Potentially Charlotte as well. I mean, Charlotte turns up for sports. I mean, they just opened an FCS or an MLS club, pardon me, and they are absolutely packing those games this season. So definitely a big city to potentially move for. And I know there's been a lot of pull out of that. Actually, the owner of the guy who wants to get a team into Charlotte, has contacted me personally, and we might bring him here onto the show, especially if that discussion for Oakland moving comes up at some point here this season.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about. Yeah, have you been talking to that guy? The guy that's
here and there. With the topic of Oakland potentially moving, I definitely think it's something that we can bring somebody on here to talk about at some point.
Good, because he might give those jobs. Oh. No.
Nice, Matt.
No, but I mean, is there any other team that you could really think of in baseball that should move?
Well, I think the thing is, like, this is off the topic about moving, but I'm talking about expanding.
Yeah,
you're in a sport like baseball right now where you're struggling to even have 80% of your teams. You're even struggling to get 20,000 people in the stadium at night. So I don't even think the idea of expanding would really do anything for them because you're just. Especially if you
open up
to a smaller
another
city.
Ballpark.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If you expand to a smaller city, maybe like Charlotte, like you said, turns out. But like if they after the first couple years, if they have a team that stinks, there's not gonna be that many people there. So I think that's another issue that they would create is you're gonna have more empty ballparks.
All right, how would you propose teams get more? How do we fix the attendance problem in baseball?
It's tough.
Because I mean, you look at the game and there's not much you can really change.
There's not much you can change.
So much you can do.
I think the thing for me is, and I don't know how much this would change like attendance wise, but like, or maybe not even just so much attendance wise, just interest in the game in general, because that leads to attendance. Is that, I watch games on ESPN a lot whenever they have them on, and I could count them on one hand. It's the same 5 teams every week on Sunday night baseball, Monday night, Phillies, Yankees, Red Sox. I know the Angels are on the West Coast, but you have 2 of the greatest players that are going to be in this generation, Trout and Ohtani. They're hardly even on TV. So start getting your best players on TV. I mean, and try to get as many teams on as you can, because you see basketball. I know that there's a lot of teams that they have on a lot throughout the weeks. I mean, I know the Lakers run a lot and they stunk, but it's the Lakers. You're going to throw them on. But basketball puts a bunch of different teams on. It's baseball. How about it's like another thing with the
baseball
Blue Jays.
Puts everything on MLB TV.
That's true, and like start put like you have. MLB has ESPN and Fox. Like, start getting more games on them, first of all, more games, but start putting your best players on there.
Especially over the summer. They have no competition in the sports world.
Put all your best players on summer. Like, every week on Sunday Night Baseball, it's either the Braves, Dodgers, Cubs. And the Cubs, they stink, and they're still throwing them on. They don't have any names that are going to draw any interest right now. Throw the Angels on there. Throw the Blue Jays on there. Throw the Astros. Astros have been dominating the American League, and they never put them on.
I haven't watched a complete game of baseball so far this season for major leagues. And I haven't done so on ESPN or Fox. The only one I've watched, I think, was part of a Guardians game on Bally Sports.
I haven't watched a full game either.
Oh, I could watch full games all the time. I could watch it all day, every day.
I'm also going out and calling games, and it's about the same time, so I don't necessarily get the opportunity.
I'm not saying I wouldn't. I've just been busy.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I had a doubleheader last night, and I said I didn't even get home until the 9th inning of that game yesterday.
But Alec, another thing too, and I hate to keep beating the dead horse with the salary cap thing, but that also would provide more interest, I think, because it
opens up discussions on where players will actually go, because now you have a big name free agent, you go, oh well, it's New York or LA.
Yeah, and I think
if you limit that, then you're going to get those big names in a place like Chicago, or get them sent to the Texas Rangers or Oakland or the Marlins could potentially get somebody at that point, and you still maintain a competitive advantage to the teams that have more money. You see that in the NBA. The teams that have money and are willing to spend are the best teams. Same goes in the NFL. So you still keep that part of baseball. If you have money, you can buy a good team, but I think it limits the super teams that we're seeing right now in Major League Baseball. And as good as that is for a team like the Dodgers, whose bullpen is absolutely killing it, it does create a severe unfair advantage for a team like the Dodgers. I mean, because they can go out there and basically buy the NL All-Star team and have them fielded for 164 games.
Yeah, I think that's big. And again, I know a lot of people throughout baseball don't like Rob Manfred. I'm not a supporter of him either. But I think that's another big thing is getting a commissioner that actually cares about the game of baseball. Because we talked about him many times on the show before. The way he talked about the World Series trophy, the way all this other stuff. If you actually have a guy that cares from the top, and like I said, it creates a more competitive field where it's not just
You
Yankees,
look at
Dodgers.
the biggest growth in the history of the NBA. It was because they had a commissioner that people got behind. They loved David. Well, they loved to hate David Stern, but they also knew that he was, for the game of basketball. Everything he did was helping out the teams that they liked watching outside of, the one trade that he had blocked with sending, I think it was Chris Paul to the Lakers.
Yeah.
And, that was really the one thing I think in his entire tenure you look at and go, why'd you do that one? But I mean, yeah, it was due to the fact that they were coming off of Jordan. You had all the momentum with young Kobe Bryant and Shaq. You had your main teams, our super teams. Right now is the time to capitalize if you're Major League Baseball and shoot yourself to new levels you haven't seen in 100 years, because it's what the NBA did. The NFL really did it. I mean, when they made everything into the Super Bowl, their best teams were at the height of their powers. I mean, really, and it shot them into immediate stardom, combining all of these big leagues into one National Football League and giving them that Super Bowl. They gave their sport and that recognizable name. Baseball already has that, obviously, with the World Series, but you had great teams doing great things. Major League Baseball has that right now. It's time for them to capitalize if they're going to save the sport.
Yeah.
If they want to save it from becoming irrelevant, they have to do something. Sitting by and letting this, depreciate year after year, especially with the lockout this last offseason, that hurt. That I think that hurt baseball. I mean, you already kind of touched on it, but the more and more they dig their heels in against changing baseball in any way, the more hurt that this is going to get.
And I think, yeah, like you said about the lockout, that's true. But I don't know. I really don't have too many ideas. I mean, you're asking a person like me that loves baseball. It's my favorite sport, so I really can't I don't know too many ways you could change it. I don't know. And I think the biggest thing with them is they're trying, like you said, they're trying to do too many things within the game instead of focusing on things outside the game to get people involved. Like, shaving 10 minutes off the game? What's that going to do?
10 minutes in a 3-hour ball game. Yippee. Yeah.
What's that do? I mean, the focus, I think, is on the little things that are stupid that nobody pays attention to. Like you said, what's the difference between
the shift?
What's the difference between well, and that's the other thing too. I don't really care about the shift. Like, people do it, whatever. I mean, guys, I think this year, finally, the teams I've been watching at least, a lot of hitters are starting to learn how to go the opposite way, which is good because you're beating the shift.
Did you see what the Toronto Blue Jays have done this season? They're putting their second baseman in the outfield, and they're having 4 outfielders and 3 infielders.
I mean, it looks, and that's the thing. I really don't agree with baseball taking it away, because, like, I don't know if I said on this show before, but I told people before that it's like, that's like telling basketball you can't play 2-3 zone. That's like telling football you can't play man to man. It's a defensive strategy. I don't really think that helps with anything getting people more involved, because you're taking away strategy.
No, and AA baseball has already eliminated the shift, and the difference in batting percentage went from, I believe, .301 to .305. So it changed that much, and that's not enough to change it at the major league level, which is why, it wasn't even, it was a talking point, but it went away pretty quickly in this last offseason.
That's my point. Like, they're making all these changes that do nothing. Like, little margins, like you just said.
Changing the little bit of a weight of the baseball so it doesn't fly as far.
And changing, like, the whole, I think the whole thing with the lockout was that really got people ticked off. It's because not only did they ignore the real issues with the competitive balance, with the salary caps, but they were worried about so many stupid things, like making the bases bigger. Who cares about that? arguing over if the balls are dead or not. Like, who cares? That is not that's not the point of a lockout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Lockout was
tough.
getting people paid correctly, and they really did not do any of it. But we're gonna transition here out of the NBA. Out of the MLB into the NHL. Guys, surprise, surprise! Boston has made it a series somehow against Carolina, taking
I'm
the
surprised.
2 home games. I'm very surprised. I know I wasn't here on the show yesterday to talk about any of these series, but I mean, I think with all of the first 2 games really giving us kind of this expectation of a lot of sweeps here, and now all but 2 series are tied at 2 apiece.
Guys, I'll tell you what. Every series so far, besides the Colorado series, I'm loving all of these series. They're really not going the way.
Pittsburgh series.
Well, yeah, obviously, but none of these series really have gone the way we predicted them. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't predict. I predicted Washington to lose in 5. They might still lose, but not in 5 games. And I honestly thought Carolina had a chance to sweep Boston.
Yeah, me too.
A lot of these series aren't going the way at least I thought they would go. I don't know about you guys.
I think it's the one thing we always overlook every year. Teams play awesome at home in the playoffs. Those home environments are just something else.
And hockey, just like baseball, is a hard sport to predict.
Yeah. I mean, one, how many times are you going to rely on the Pittsburgh Penguins to put up 7 goals? Never. You're not going out and predicting 7 goals.
What have they had in the last 2 games, Matt? 7 last night, and Saturday they had 7. So they scored 14 goals in 2 games.
Yeah. But you look back at the regular season, how on earth would you go into the playoffs and go, oh, they're going to do that against the Rangers of all teams?
And we beat Detroit 11-2. I'm like, that's Detroit, but 7-2 against the Rangers.
And Matt, against Shesterkin, because after that,
you put 7 on them twice.
After that game 7, or after the game 2, I mean, that they lost. Like I was thinking, like, okay, Louis Domingue came in first game, he held his ground. He did okay in game 2, even though they lost, but they weren't helping him out. But I was like, okay, it's going to be hard to win the series now because if it comes down to Louis Domingue and Shesterkin, they get the advantage. But these last 2 games, man, we knocked him out early. Seriously, I don't know. I don't know. He's rattled. Something's going on. I mean, something with the offense. Obviously, you credit the offense. Like I said, put 14 goals in 2 games.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, that's just insane to even think about. No team's doing 14 goals in back-to-back, games like that. That's, unprecedented, especially not here in the playoffs against as good of a team as the Rangers are. I mean, they were the 2 seed, one of our 2 seeds here in hockey this year. So I think to see them fall apart like that, especially down 3-1 now, it's hard to say, on Wednesday that Pittsburgh isn't going to take a gentleman's sweep in the series.
Yeah. I've been saying that, man.
This is going the exact opposite of where I thought this was going. I mean, the Rangers looked like a really solid team all season long. I mean, 6 more wins than the Penguins. And maybe the one thing that came out of it, the Rangers got exhausted. After that first game that went so deep, or was the second game that went deep? I don't remember which one. It was the first game that went deep.
First game went deep, but they bounced back and kicked our butt.
Yeah, they bounced back, got it, and now they're exhausted.
Well, I think, too, and I think you're kind of right about saying
and they were out of energy.
I think you're right about saying they're exhausted, but it's also like, why, though? Because they're a younger team than Pittsburgh is, and we were all saying that was a thing they had at their advantage. They're a younger team, faster team. But I think
that's what I was thinking. But you know what? Sometimes
Pittsburgh's experience,
getting up every day for 15 years and putting yourself in that rhythm sometimes can be a little bit more of an advantage. Because you know what? Those Penguins players, they've been here before. They're used to. The thing is, when we talk about that, experience, they're used to having a long season. You look at those young guys, they're coming out of college playing half as many games, now doing, twice as many here in the NHL and doing against the best players in the world. You get down this late in your first time in the playoffs, you're going to triple overtime, and then you have another hard-fought win the next day, and now you have to go on the road and go to Pittsburgh into a very hostile environment with a rowdy crowd, one of the rowdiest in sports. We know everybody here knows Pittsburgh knows how to turn up for a game.
Yes,
and, now you get these kids a little bit rattled, young guys, and they're frankly exhausted at this point because they're not used to playing at this deep. Even if they've been in the league 4 or 5 years, sometimes you get this late apart and you're still just not used to it. You got a guy going 10, 15 years on the other side. Yeah, maybe he was wearing down a little bit in the season, but he was wearing down to the expectation. He knew he was going to have to step up in the playoffs. And I think that's the piece that, especially me, I've been overlooking going into this. Like, oh, yeah, the young guys, they're going to be more fresh. Well, sometimes the older guys are a little bit more conditioned. That's why a guy like, go over to the NBA. Why LeBron and Steph Curry have been able to go so long is because they conditioned themselves to work all the way through the Stanley, all the way through the NBA championship. And guys on this Penguins team have conditioned themselves to work up to that Stanley Cup championship.
Yeah, well, definitely condition themselves because, Matt, his 16. How long has Sidney Crosby been playing?
2004.
So he's really pretty much been in the playoffs almost every year of his career.
Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, and that's the experience too. And I forget what broadcast it was, but it was one of the first 2 games in New York, and they were saying like, hey, Pittsburgh got out to a slow start. And I think it was game 2, the one they lost. Got out to a slow start, but when you have a guy like Sidney Crosby and you're a young guy. Even Malkin, Matt. I know he hasn't been playing people good in the series. People have been getting on him, but when you still have a guy like that and you're a young guy and you're looking at him when they're down a few goals, and he's not rattled, that gives you something there. It's like, okay, we got enough to come back. We can do it. Let's just keep doing what we can do. So I think that Alec, I think that's credit to having the older guys. And it's something I thought about too with the Rangers. I was like, look, they're younger, they're fresher, they're going to put up more goals, and I thought they were going to put up way more goals than the Penguins were, and I was wrong. And again, I don't think any of us expected. Matt, I know I was talking to you about it last night. Not too many writers picked the Penguins to win this series. I know it's not over yet, but it's a commanding lead.
Nobody picked them to be up 3-1 in the series. So I mean, I know.
I don't think anyone here on the show picked them to be up 3-1.
I picked them to win in 6, and this kind of sets that up because it really gets them the hold to be up 3-1 because they can go on their own. They're not really obligated to win that game. I mean, it'd be nice for them to finish it off in 5, but they're not.
And give those older guys a little bit of rest to get them ready for the next series because they're going to have their hands tied, whether it's Carolina or Boston. Yeah. Either one of those is going to be a hard series.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it's just going to get harder. It's the way the playoffs all work.
Harder, but I mean, to put the Rangers away.
I don't know actually if it would. I mean, you look at some of these other brackets going on, especially. Maybe with the Flames, Dallas, Oilers, and the Kings, I think that might be a little bit of a break for somebody coming out, especially like Colorado. If they can make that run through, even if they're going up against Calgary, I think that's probably a good spot. So not always getting harder here, but definitely in your guys' spot.
Yeah, but I'm just saying like it sets up for them to win in 6 games. If we lose tomorrow, then come back. It'd be easier to win at home. Yeah, I think the fans want that too.
Yeah, going out the last 2 games at home, heck yeah.
Yeah. So, but that we did the hard thing, and that was the win on the road. Rangers couldn't do that, so we did that hard. We battled it out 2-3.
You still won it on the road, and you won yours at home. You did. That's exactly what you're supposed to do.
That's what you gotta do.
And everybody else did what they were supposed to do and win their home games. So, except for Predators.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they really
had to go up against Colorado.
Yeah,
some slack.
Nashville's a team that was
Nashville was one of the last teams to get in.
Yeah,
they were the final wild card.
Yeah, so they knew what was going to happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, how about we go into today's matchup? We can talk more about the Penguins and Rangers tomorrow, but Boston at Carolina. I think we've seen the home team win every time in this series. That's going to be a big theme when we go to pick here today. But I got Carolina coming away with the win against Boston. I know Boston's taken the last 2. They've looked good doing it. But Carolina, we haven't seen them many times this season lose, back-to-back games, let alone 3 straight games. And, I know that it was a bad offensive stand on the road. I mean, 9-4, the Bruins outscored the Hurricanes in those 2 games to tie things up. But I think going into tonight, that Hurricanes offense, they're going to come back at some point here, and I'm expecting it to be today. I mean, with the amount of goals they scored this season, it's only a matter of time. The defense isn't going to continue to let up 4 or 5 goals a game. It's going to come back. I got Carolina going tonight, going up 3-2.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Boston miraculously pulled off those 2 games. They're not going into Carolina win this game. No.
Mike?
I would like to see them win, though.
I got Carolina.
So Pittsburgh can beat the crap out of them.
Okay. Second
Don't
game
get cocky
here.
there, Matt.
Tampa Bay and Toronto, Game 5 going into tonight in Toronto. Once again, home teams won every time. So I think you have to give a little bit of the edge immediately over to Toronto. I mean, it's been such a big theme of this postseason already. And, both these teams, we kind of looked at this as maybe one of that closer series because of, how tight these two were fighting for that second place in the Atlantic Division all season long. And, they're coming in here. They both came in pretty hot going into the playoffs. They both looked good so far in, their respective wins in the playoffs. I mean, you even look, it was both teams won on the road and both teams won at home. That's how they split. It was 1-1 at both locations. So, you come back in this series and you look at the last couple games, it's been offense for one side and defense for the other, but it keeps switching every game. I mean, we haven't had one team win back-to-back, so I guess for that reason alone, I'm going Maple Leafs in this game tonight, and I'll even give you a score of 4-2 as my final tonight, Toronto over the Lightning.
Mike?
I'm still rolling with Tampa Bay. I've been talking about them all year. I'm not going to jump off. But I think we talk about the Penguins scoring a bunch of goals. They finally broke out the last game, put up 7. So maybe their offense might have found something. Maybe that gives them more confidence going on the road in Toronto because it's a hard place to play, Matt. Toronto, yeah. It's hard.
Yeah.
But they're again, we just talked about experience. They're an experienced team. They just won back-to-back Stanley Cups, and if they found something with their offense in the last game, carries over. I'm going to like them to win.
I'm going to go Lightning too. I think they can get it on the road.
You're picking Lightning. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Well, next series here, the Wild and the Blues. So far, I mean, tied again as everything else has been. And, the differential is leading me to no help on this one because in the series alone, the Wild have outscored the Blues 13-12. And that's the margin of victory is 1 between the two in our first 4 games. So this really is anybody's game. But maybe the one thing that stands out to me, the Wild won back-to-back games in this series, making that road that trip the first time from Minnesota to St. Louis. Now they're going from St. Louis to Minnesota. I think that they got a chance here coming off of, the little break and getting that, getting back in here today. They took the travel day. They played better coming off the last one. I'll give the Wild here the victory at home.
I'm rolling Minnesota too, man. I've been kind of, even at the beginning of the series, I'm like, hey, they can make this a series. And I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to roll Minnesota here.
I think I'm going to stick with St. Louis. I think they were able to get one on the road, so they have maybe the confidence to maybe do it again. And I think, although someday they played at home, I think, Matt, they got good performances from a couple guys. Like David Perron had 2 goals. That's good to get him going, too. And they were talking about that on the broadcast. So I think I'm going to kind of use the same thing I just used with Tampa Bay. I think they're going to maybe have some more confidence going on the road.
All right, Kings and Oilers. This one, to me, despite the fact the series is 2 apiece, I think the Oilers have played better overall in this series. I'm going to give them the win here at home as well. They won the last travel day. That's how they won back-to-back games as well in this series. And differential in this series alone sits at +7 on the side of the Oilers. So, that differential has, ruled my season so far, so I'm not jumping off of it just yet. I got Oilers taking down the Kings tonight.
Me too.
Me 3.
We want the Oilers to win, Matt. I don't like the Kings.
I don't like the Kings. I like Edmonton.
I want to see Connor McDavid keep going. We talked about just with baseball having your best players in the best times. I want to see Connor McDavid.
I want to see McDavid.
Well, alrighty here. Let's get into the NBA then to wrap up today's show here on the Casual Sports Podcast. Games tonight, Sixers and Heat. Game 5 series is also tied at 2 apiece. It seems to be the year of tied series outside Golden State, and that's no surprise to anybody. But, Phoenix and Dallas going into, tonight. We'll talk that one first. Dallas, I think, has really surprised people, and it really has come on the defensive side of things. It's how they won these last 2 games. They held the Suns to an average of under 100 points in those last 2 games. First 2 games, it was 120-plus points in both of them for Phoenix. Defense turned on, and it allowed, Luka Doncic to put up the same numbers, and for them to basically score the same amount of points. They scored less on average between these last 2 games than they did in the first 2 games, and they're coming away with wins. We always talk about at this point, defense wins championships, and they found a way to limit that Suns' explosive offense because there's no way that you were going to beat the Suns if they were playing their best basketball and dominating offensively.
Well, I'm going to kind of – I know we're going to talk about both games tonight, so I'm going to kind of – because both my breakdowns of both these games are kind of similar. And I kind of said it yesterday when we were talking about Matt. Or me and Matt were talking about it.
Monday,
I think it's going to be the same situation with both teams tonight. I'm not guaranteeing a win for both home teams, but I feel like it's going to – I have confidence in picking that because I don't – we saw the first two games with both of these teams, with Philly and Dallas. They didn't shoot well on the road at all. And I don't know if that's going to happen, again, if they finally found something on the road, they can carry on, but I don't trust that happening. Like, I don't trust – especially with Phoenix, I'm not going to – with their defense, they're going to have to make changes, obviously, and I think they can't do it because they were guarding Luka, but they were still leaving their other shooters open. So I think they're going to try to throw everything at Luka and make their other guys beat him on the road. And I think it's going to happen with Philly tonight with Miami because Miami's one of the better defensive teams. Obviously, they're not going to have Kyle Lowry, so that hurts. But both my picks, I'm going to pick both home teams.
They haven't had him the whole year, so
it's true.
I mean, they didn't have him last year.
Well, Mike, I guess we're taking both home teams are taking both your games here then tonight.
Yes.
So you've got the Heat and the Suns taking home the victory. Matt, what are your thoughts here on the two games?
I'm rolling with them. We were talking about this Monday. I agree with it. I mean, Miami Heat destroyed them at home those first two times, and Phoenix, beat them by a margin as well. We thought it was the end of Luka Doncic. We were talking about it. We were like, oh, he can't do it by himself. He put up like 45 points in that one game. They still lost, but they came back at home.
Matt,
and
I think that's what Phoenix has to do. I think they have to go back to that game plan in the first two games. Just let Luka get his. If he gets his, do whatever. But they're not going to let these role players.
4 points again, though.
Well, because the shots that Dallas' role players were getting in those two games at home, they were literally practice shots. Like, guys were wide open. Like, I don't see them doing that at home. I think they should go back to what they did in the first two games. And it was Miami tonight. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think they're going to find a way to get it.
Well, I guess on my side of things, we talked about Luka Doncic doing everything while they were on the road. Well, Devin Booker put up 35 points in the game, just the other night, and they still lost by double digits. So it's a similar performance. Devin and Luka are getting theirs. The series is going to go by who else is stepping up for these teams. And I think Dallas figured something out about this Suns squad, and I don't know if the Suns have reacted back. Their head coach, Monty Williams, just was named the head coach of the year for the NBA in this past season. Props to him. But Dallas right now in these last two games, they've surprised me. Really making this comeback because, I was right there on the bandwagon to, push Phoenix out there and go, oh, no one's touching them here in this playoffs. They're looking great. They're too good. They had a slip up against New Orleans. It's not going to happen again. It happened again, and now they have a much better team than the Pelicans doing it against them. And I think Dallas figured something out, and the Suns haven't looked great on the road in the postseason here so far. I think this is the first time we see them slip up at home. I got Dallas going in the western side. In the eastern part of the United States, I'm actually taking the road team in both games. I said maybe the one thing that was going to impact me was the return of Joel Embiid and his just presence in there in the game. He doesn't have to put up numbers, and, he is anyways. He's doing just enough for his squad. But, I said he didn't have to do it. Just his presence alone was going to change this game. And instead he goes out there, drops 24 points and 11 rebounds, putting in, a block in there as well. And what did that do? It allowed James Harden to go up there and put up 31 points because he got to play second fiddle again. And all the attention was taken off Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is the difference maker in this series. Miami Heat, I've already said, I don't know if they were going to have a matchup there if, Embiid was healthy. Turns out they don't have a matchup there even when he's not. So I got the 76ers ruin the day here. Road teams all the way. I was going to home favorite in the NHL, so I got to go road teams here in the NBA.
There you go.
Yeah. So
it's fair. It's again, especially the Philly one with Miami. It's hard to predict now because you have Joel Embiid back. You have him back now, so they didn't have
potential MVP. Not a potential. You have an MVP caliber player. Two of them taking the floor now against the Miami squad that doesn't have one.
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy Butler is not an MVP. Bam Adebayo is not in an MVP discussion. Kyle Lowry has not been in an MVP discussion. Tyler Herro is not even he's up there for sixth man contention. But
I think he won sixth man.
Miami Heat is a good team made up of good players. The 76ers is an average team made up of great players, and those great players are stepping up the right moments here, and that's led by Joel Embiid, and he is the X factor of Philadelphia. That is why they moved on from Ben Simmons and not him, because they knew this guy could deliver when they needed him, and he's shown that in these 2 games. The man came back with a broken freaking face, and he's still dropping it on him. Could you imagine? 76ers would have swept this series if he was healthy. And I have confidence saying that with what we've seen in the last 2 games, with him playing at probably about 75%. If this dude was healthy, it wasn't even a competition. Miami Heat, the most overrated 1 seed this season. And I said it. I didn't really like them coming into it, and I don't like them in this series. If they come back and win it, good on them. I got them losing the next one, though. I don't think they come out of the East. If they do, congratulations. If they can make another run, good for them. I just don't see it happening.
I didn't pick them to come out of the East because I thought Milwaukee was going to come out of the East. And
Yeah.
I'm not confident in saying that anymore, but I still feel pretty good about Milwaukee. I mean, they're showing a little cracks.
I mean, the way Golden State is playing right now, no one's going to beat them.
Everyone's playing them close, though, but they just know how to win. I mean, Golden State had the lead for 45 seconds last night.
Yep.
And it was the final 45 of the game, and they win it. They trailed the entire game against Memphis and still won.
I told Matt yesterday, and all 3 of us know this being Cleveland fans. When they go on their runs and they go off on you and hit 40-foot bombs, and they move the ball and they get open shots, you can't beat them.
And that's the thing.
And they're back to playing that way.
Steph and Clay weren't even they didn't even have good performances last night, and they still won.
And it doesn't
matter.
But
Draymond had the most important part at the end when he made that block. That's what he's good for.
He's going to step up and make his play. And, Matt, you say Steph didn't have a good day. He still had 32 points and 8 assists and 5 rebounds. Andrew Wiggins pulled down a double-double, 17 points and 10 rebounds as well. Thompson still had 14. And they have so much bench help with just 4 guys. I mean, their bench in this game accounted for, almost 30 points in it. So, 32 points, I think, in total, off of some quick math while talking. So the fact that they're running this few people and Kuminga played only 5 minutes in this entire game, got 1 rebound, 1 assist, I mean, ain't no one stopping them. Once they get going, they're gone.
And they're going.
They are. And, it'll be sooner rather than later that they're going to, take that stuff up. And, similar thing in that Celtics-Bucks series. If the Celtics figure out what to do, like it appears they might have done on the road last night, good night, Milwaukee. Because if Jason Tatum figures out how to stop Giannis like we've seen a couple of times here in this series, it's over.
Yep.
And I'm not calling Boston Golden State, but we know what that city can be when they have a good team.
Yeah.
It's obviously no Larry Bird, no John Havlicek, no Bill Russell, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
They know how to work. Well, that does it here. Casual Sports Podcast, Tuesday the 10th. That does it. I'm Alec. That's Matt. That's Mike. Power Hour up next on YSN. Peace.